cradle board last time, so I'm just gonna show you my cradle board to tell you a little bit about it. Last month's was on cradle boards, and this month's is on flutes today. So we're getting flutes after cradle board.
Knocked me over. Not, maybe by accident, but it like completely took me, I had checked in at the, done my card and the check-in, and I was walking, and I wasn't even to the rocks, the rock climbing thing, and I was side. My glasses went blind. Well, he got my glasses for me. Yeah, what is that? Well, I'm down. Yeah. And he gave me a hug. Yeah, he did. Like 12, 13.
You said you can show me how that one turned out?
Right now I can't because I have a live going, but afterwards I can show you the results.
Okay, that's not too bad a picture.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I think I'm just going to leave them at the
Okay, sure, so you can still see.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just gotta go.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, we might go, the sister's were here today, that was the only one that's open. And I was like, I don't know much of the best. I know. Everything I can think of when I know it's there and I can buy it, it must have been in the old day. I know, I couldn't believe we were there for like half an hour. I mean, he was just reading things and the other things to me. And some of it was really funny. The last time it takes a while for you to get those out.
I know, I had no idea. Because I just am like, you never did. I don't know that I ever, maybe like the first time we came to Vegas.
Oh, before, okay, but not since. So,
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Larry Cesspooch. My last name Cesspooch means white belly in our Ute language. That was my great-great-grandpa's Ute name. And that name came from Montrose, Colorado. We all were over there at one time, and then there were Utah Utes that were here, and we got relocated over here, and that's how I came to be here. This is the second year of doing these sessions. One of my philosophies is that you don't have a respect or can't have any kind of understanding without knowing about the culture, and so that's one of the things that I've always tried to do throughout my lifetime, is to help share my culture so people can understand, and the way you have some respect, and especially here, you know, we're neighbors, but so many people don't even know we're over there, or we come here to have to shop and eat and what have you, but there's almost like an invisible line. You get that reservation over there just after the twist, boom, everybody's invisible until you come out the other side, and next thing you know, you're in Roosevelt, and you just pass the reservation, and so somewhat my purpose is to help us to help you to understand our culture. And so what I've tried to do each month is to do things seasonably that we do as a people, as a culture. And so during these winter months are our storytelling months, and we've done some storytelling. And one of the things that was done during these times was flute making, and so I'll talk about that. Last month I did on cradle board making, and I didn't have my cradle board at the time. This was my cradle board, and got a little doll in here. Her name is what is her name? She's got an official name. It's been so long since I've pulled it out. I want to say her name is Molly. But from the time you're born, you're stuck in a cradle board traditionally. And I must have been a pretty big baby to fit this. They call it a vacan because of this shade here. And they go and make this shade in the spring. They go out and they gather willows along the rivers, and you can see what kind of the red willows. And you can see you have to bend them and shape them, and then of course you put it on the board. Back in the day, we were always on the move because the ladies had things to do, and so they would strap the cradle board on their back. And mine? Yeah. Okay, here it is. Shoulders, breathe out through your shoulders. Okay, good. So you could about go around and do what you had to do, and the baby was there. And of course you could ride a horse with the cradle board. And when non-Indians came, we were always on the run because somebody more than likely was trying to kill us. So, it was really useful back then. course, the scarf is for, it's nice and quiet in there. I remember my grandma who used to take care of me when my mom was working and such. And she'd knock me out with her little rhyme she would do. She'd go, that's probably about as far as I got. But, Molly here is in here now. My son, he's a big guy. He's 6'5". He was in here. And my oldest daughter, she was a little preemie. And we had to stuff this whole bottom part with diapers because she would slide all the way down down to about here. So she was on diapers, and then the last one was also raised in there, and she was regular size. And the last session I showed how the ladies make them, and you can attach this beaded portion on here to make it decorated. Same way with this fringe in the back. And the yellow paint is from a rock, like sandstone. The yellow was, I always said it was for baby food, but yellow is the color of, they would do for babies. Yeah. So if you can't tell, this is painted yellow. Any questions?
How long did you stay in here?
Until you outgrew it. And so they call those that were raised in cradleboard flatheads because you see your head is flat. You can tell. But yeah. But when you're in a cradleboard, you're brought up where you observe everything. You can't touch it. You can't. So you observe everything first before you're actually able to be able to go and touch it and appreciate it. And so those type of babies are different than those who aren't in a cradle. They can get at everything. You all might know that. Better than I do. And so, yeah, you're more restraining, you're more disciplined in a sense, self-discipline. Where you listen and you observe, and when you're old enough, you can go out and touch and take all at it. So that's a cradle board. Good luck. Any other questions? Yeah.
I'm a former newborn intensive care nurse, and, we swallow babies because it calms them down, so to me, it's like, that is like the most perfect way to be a child, because then you feel safe and secure.
Oh,
and
sure,
you're
it's just like a
observed,
womb.
and you're observing at the same
Oh,
time.
sure.
So non-judgmental observation, wow, it's really awesome.
Yeah, I always say that this is the first safety seat. You tip over because of the shade, you're protected. So baby would probably still be asleep, tipped over. Yeah. So that's the cradle board. And so today we'll be talking about the flute. And there's a story that goes along with the flute. Our youth people are knowing the first 6-hole finger flute. And the story goes humans fight over women, over territory, over food, or whatever. Anyway, his family got killed except for the little boy, so he was an orphan. So his uncle brought him into his family. And the little boy liked this little girl over here, and always tried to be around her, but her dad would always send him off because he knew he was an orphan, and like, oh, he doesn't have anything, get away. And so one night, this boy had a dream to go up into the hills, and when he did, the next day, he heard this sound. And he started walking towards that sound. Got close enough, what he'd seen was up on a limb was a woodpecker. And whenever the wind would blow, that wind would go through this hollow limb and would make a sound. And oh, the boy really liked it. And so he cut off the limb and took it down to his home, to the village, and seeing that the woodpecker had made 6 holes, and he started to play with it, learn how to play it. I can't play it, so I'm not going to humiliate myself. I've had many people give me flutes, and I'll share with you here, but I can't play to my satisfaction, and I'm not going to humiliate myself. But there are some people that can just pick it up and play it. It's not an instrument that you've got to use a lot of wind, breath. It's just really light, and you can fluctuate your breath to where it makes different sounds, but you really don't have to blow hard to make it play. So the boy learned how to play pretty good, and so he was ready to share this with this girl. So he went outside her TV, and he knew she was in there. So he started playing, and she liked it pretty good. Made her heart go like this. And her dad wasn't too far from the TV, and he heard the sound, and it was like, wow, what's that? And so the girl came out, and he revealed himself, and he was playing. And the father seeing that he had this gift, and so he allowed them to be together. And so that was the story. It's the story of the first flute. And so it was a woodpecker who gave it flutes and the hollow limb. So as I said, through different jobs I've had in my life. I worked with Head Start one time for a couple of years, and Head Start, one of their objectives was a fatherhood thing, and it had to have a literacy component. And so there aren't many books out or anything with the Ute language and that. So I found a template online that you can make these little books, like the Golden Books, but just real basic. And so I'd go through and I'd draw and come up with a told a story about the woodpecker and all of that, and gave that to the kids. And so for every month we had a different project, and I'd come up with a different book. And I guess I should have brought those and should have shared those with you. I've got so much stuff, and I've got to find them, and it's like tax time. Find all your documents. I keep telling myself every year, okay, I'm going to put them all in this one bin. That be there, and I always end up looking. So this is what we did one month, and I got these from the Boy Scouts over here. I think it's still over here. And so the kids, once they got the little book, they were able to stain flutes, and they did some with a etching tool. They made designs on the side. They had to work with their dads, and so it was a dad and son project, and it turned out to be pretty cool. A lot of them learned how to play a couple of tunes. I should have invited a friend of mine, Wayne Gardner. He's one of our flute players, but he taught them how to play a couple of tunes. And so one of our Head Start powwows during in between the dances, they all come out and played their little tunes and had a good time. Got a standing ovation. So this is one of my relatives, Aaron White, and he's going to tell you about the flute.
Ja, Aaron White, the Bethlehem and Bashchi. I am Nota and Shle. I am half Navajo and I'm half Northern Ute from the Uinta Reservation. And I grew up partly on the reservation, off the reservation. Urban Indian from Northern California, traveling between two reservations, the Northern Ute Reservation, Uinta Agency, and also the Navajo Reservation from Kenta, Arizona, from Monument Valley area. I grew up around music a lot, influenced from something that was put inside of me from birth, from both my tribes of Northern Ute and Diné Navajo. From the Northern Ute tribe, my grandfather was a singer. He was a drummer. He traveled around the United States through different reservations, performing music through ceremony, but also through social songs. And so that's what he did for a living. He traveled around and sang for people. He had a very beautiful voice. I never met my grandfather. He passed before my birth. But my other grandfather was also a medicine man and also a singer. And he traveled all the way up to Canada, he worked on the railroads, and he learned different songs from different people that he met. They say that Navajo people, you can find them everywhere. You know, we're like aluminum cans. You know, you can find us all over the place. And so my grandfather was with the group of Navajo men from the Navajo Reservation. And he took on an apprenticeship to be a medicine man. And so that's what he did for the rest of his life, was he went and did ceremonies for people, but he also sang songs. He learned all these traditional songs, as my other grandfather on my youth side did. So that seed was instilled in me from my father and from my mother. Music was always a part of our family. Even as a young child, I could remember songs on the radio or the turntable, and people gathering at our house in this little tiny town of about 500 people in White Rocks, Utah, on the Uinta Reservation. And my mother and father separated when I was a very young boy. So I went to live with my mother on the Uinta Reservation. And we had music playing all the time, whether it would be traditional music, whether it be modern music of R&B and jazz and blues, or just top 40 music on the radio. But also what happened was when I was a little boy, I would go to ceremonies. I'd go to sun dances with my mother, and my grandmother and my uncles were dancers, and my uncles were also drummers in the Sundance Chorale. And we would go and we would emulate these sounds of the dancers. We'd go and draw a circle in the ground, and we would make our little trail that each dancer has to dance to the tree, and we would make our little trail, and we'd emulate the dancers, and we'd whistle like the eagle bone whistles. And so we would do these things in the traditional sense of the music, and my cousins would be sitting on the side of the cardboard box, and they'd be hitting it and singing emulating these songs that were sung. And back on the Navajo reservation, when we go visit my grandmother when I was living with my father in Oakland, California, we would go back to the reservation, and I would hear the songs, the traditional songs from the Yebiche dances, or I'd hear the songs from these meetings that were being held in different places. And so I would hear the drum, I would hear the sound of the music. But as I grew older and I grew up, I was listening and playing modern music. And so I would listen to a lot of different music growing up in the Bay Area. And so I would hear traditional songs, and then we'd go to these gatherings of powwows around the Bay Area. Stanford University has a huge Native American powwow at Stanford University, the Memorial Day powwow they have every year. We'd go to UC Davis, we'd go down to San Jose, California, big powwows going on. But during that time was also a time where I grew up in the 70s, and the late 60s and the 70s, we had Alcatraz. We had a little place called the Friendship House on what used to be called East 14th Street. It's called American Boulevard now, or International Boulevard in Oakland. But we would go there, and people would gather, and they would sing, and they would dance, they would share things. Lakota people, Navajo people, Anishinaabe, Hopi, Apache, all the different tribes that lived in the Bay Area, they would gather and they would sing their songs. And I had never seen anybody play Native American flute when I was growing up as a child. I didn't learn about the Native American flute until I became an older man, had a family. And it was a different journey. It was a journey that took me to a whole different place. I learned about our people from long ago, 50,000 years ago, our ancestors, the Anasazi, the Fremont, which is also up near as far as Wyoming, up to the Canadian border. The association between these civilizations, but they had the same building techniques. They had the same sort of callings and learning how to make these instruments. This instrument I have in front of me right now is river cane flute. River cane flutes are a very, very important part of the Diné culture. We call it Luk'a, Navajo, to read. And it's part of our creation story. Our creation story of the 4 different worlds. The darkness, the dark world, which is the black. The blue world, which is the water. The yellow world, which is the light. And then the white world that we live in right now, the 4th world. This traveled through all 4 parts of that world that we are in. And it is part of that creation story. On our youth side, we have the flute given to us from the animals, from the birds. The woodpecker was the one that created the sound, that created the river cane flutes, and also the aspen flutes and the pine flutes. The old woods that were used, because we didn't have modern tools to carve, so we had to use obsidian knives. We had to use sharp objects to create these flutes. Branch flutes, which were cut in half, and then put back together with tree sap, binded with strands of hide from the hunts. And so there's a lot of different methods, a lot of different ways that we created the flutes. But the cane flute, the river cane flute, it's not only shared amongst the Navajo people, the Hopi, Supai, Wallapai, Toda Odom, the Gila River, the Colorado River tribes. All these tribes here in Arizona have a connection with the cane flute, which is a vital part of their culture and their history and their ceremony. So what I like to do is start off with playing this cane flute for you. This is a little piece that I composed called River Cane Honor Song. modern world playing a traditional instrument. When I picked up making and began to form this music that I called more of a newer type of, not new age. We were always put in the new age category, I don't know why. But, we created this sound when I started this group called Bird in the Sky back in 1993. And at the time, there were no groups that were trio groups or groups that were playing the Native American flute with modern instruments like guitar and with percussion, more of an aggressive way of bringing the flute out. We had R. Carlos Nakai, who was also Diné and Ute, and he was doing more of the traditional sense of the instrument. But I had met a young boy, I call him a young boy, he was just out of high school, and his name was Kelvin Bizahalani. He was from Pinyon area, his family. And so we had been put together in a meeting, and I was looking for another musician to create a whole different sound of fusing Native American flute and guitar. So we created this sound in my bedroom, in my home, and then we made a demo, and this demo was taken from a friend of ours and was given to the record label Canyon Records, which is the largest Native American label in the world. And so they signed us to a contract. And so we were doing performances. After people had heard our music, we were hired to perform all over the country. And we were doing a performance at the Native American Music Festival in Oakland, California. And we had got an offer to go down to Malibu to do a performance at the Frank Lloyd Wright Ranch, which is the Wright Ranch up in Solstice Canyon. And so we flew down there and met a bunch of other musicians, and we met this Anglo guy, Michael Bannister, who performed with Peter Case and had performed with a lot of different great musicians, and he heard our sound, and he said, I can help you guys out. I'm a percussion player. So we got together, and he just by chance happened to move back to Flagstaff, and it was pretty amazing. And we created all these different things and all these different sounds of music, and it just exploded from there. And we had a good time making this music. We put out 7 records with Canyon Records, just by using a very simple instrument, a traditional instrument, in that sense of being able to create an old sound into a new sound and fusing it with modern instruments. And you can hear our music, in different places. You probably heard it in documentaries and films and different soundtracks. But each flute has a different tone, has a different sound, but it comes from old traditional tunings of the ancient tunings by using measurements of the hand and by using measurements of the arm. And so you would measure a fist to the first note, and then a finger's width between each one, a fist to what they call the fipple, and then the end, however long the extended part of the flute wanted to be. So we created all these different flutes when I began to make flutes, and we kept that sense of the traditional sound and the tone, which is more or less in a pentatonic scale. And so by European standards and European influence, those scales became the proper notes to play on the flute. But the ancient flutes were the ones that were sounds of how the hands were measured, and they just happened to fall into those modern scales of Western music. And so I want to play a real quick piece for you on this next flute I have, which is all made out of cedar. This next one I have is a drone flute, and I carved an eagle head. I just actually finished this one a few days ago, and I did some burn works of eagle feathers on it, and also the drone flutes, again, go back about 500 BC, the time of the Egyptians, and also to the Aztec, Mayan, Inca cultures. The drone flutes have been around for a very, very long time, but there was remnants of flutes that were found amongst the Anasazi ruins of cane flutes tied side by side. So, of course, we all know that civilizations migrated north, south, east, west. The Ned people come from around the Athabascan area, up around the Arctic Circle. The Ute people come from around the Aztec Mayan area, because we speak Uto-Azteca, is what our dialect is. And so the people migrated, the flutes migrated, influences came from different areas of how to create these different flutes, whether they were found during wartime, peacetime, trading, whatnot. It all fused together, and all these beautiful instruments have thrived even today. And we still make the flutes in that traditional sense, keeping their cultural significance, but also taking them and pushing them into modern music. So I want to play this one for you before I have to end here. And again, thank you guys for letting me be a part of this evening, and I hope you guys enjoyed hearing the music. Sky and Sky Chasers and Bluestone Project. And thank you again very much.
After him playing, there's no way I'm gonna. I didn't do anything like that.
Oh, come on, humiliate yourself.
But this is one that's made out of walnut, and all of the different woods have a different sound to them, and I think it's pretty remarkable when you consider that it's your breath and whatever something natural as wood can create such a beautiful sound, and of course your creativity of your mind to create the tunes that you do. But Creator gave us some fascinating tools to be able to make music. This here is a tuning. You have to tune it just right. You can move it around and you tie it off with it. as you can see, this one has a duck on it.
Is there a hole under that?
Yes,
Okay,
see it there?
no, but I'll take your word for it.
And you can see the hole a little better now. Yeah. So you slide this, where it's close to the hole, and then you have to blow, and the guys that can play flutes, they know exactly when you're on pitch, and so they tie it down and go for it.
And what's that called, that piece?
I'm not sure, he said
He
it
said
there.
it,
He
yeah.
said it there, and, for me, this is all over my head. I'm a filmmaker, and I point and shoot, and I know what I wanna get, but this is one of the double octave ones that he just finished playing.
And they said,
Yeah, and, as you heard, it sounds more like an organ, that double octave, and it's so pretty. This one comes with a couple of those tuning.
Actually, reminded me of throat singing.
Yeah. And of course, you slide this wherever it's supposed to fit. But it's really two pipes, flutes together, and they have the holes that come through to run down the other side. But this one here is the main one, and then this here is the other octave. And you see on the other side here where my problem is, I've got little hands, and my fingers don't fit these holes, so it's like trying to, okay, now be flexible. And so I'm not so good with it. I got a little cane to, like the first one he played, that I had made for me, it had smaller holes, and that's one I kind of jam out on, if anything, mess around on, but these others, there's only pros do these. But you have to keep your fingers on the bottom holes here, and of course work these others here on top. So it's really, I'll pass these around, you can check them out for yourself. And this was the Boy Scout one.
The children of the tribe, do they do this still?
I think you about have to have a mentor to be able to do things like that. It's really exposure, and unless you get it in school or someplace, or you know somebody who does it, you don't get exposed to it. It's just like filmmaking.
Yeah.
I go into the schools and show them what they could do, and they've got such fabulous minds, they can put together some pretty awesome things for just a little time I spend with them.
Well,
I say, you know, that's your ticket out of here, man, if you wanna go do some stuff. I can get you into Sundance, I can get you into some places that, way back when I started, there was no way. It's taken me 20 years to get into biz and do what I can do now, but, yeah. If you're brave enough, you can try to blow on them. Wasn't that fabulous, that first tune? Oh, man, he can make sounds of the birds.
yes.
And see, my fingers, I play drums, but my fingers aren't that fast. Yeah, but he is. There you go. That's kind of decent. But you can imagine that boy when he heard that first sound, and then he heard that tapping, and go towards the direction of that sound. one more little piece I'm gonna share with you about, another youth flute player. His name is Nino Reyes. And, he was one of those that played for the 2002 Winter Olympics when they had the opening ceremony. Flute players were stationed in 4 points throughout the auditorium, not auditorium, but the stadium. And so they were some of the ones that started off the whole opening. And I think I've got that one queued up where.
Was that Park City?
No, that was out in Salt Lake. It was at the University of Utah.
Valley?
Listening to Claim Your Territory, the weekly voice of the Old Capitol Store.
So as Aaron was talking about how today they're mixing different percussion along with flags, questions about the flute?
Do your children play?
No, no. Again, that's one of those things, if you're not exposed to it. Mine, I've got one that plays Brazilian drums. She's in Washington, and she plays those. The other is more of the intellectual. She's working on her doctorate, and it's on her thesis is on oil tribes. We oil tribes, we get a bad rap because we're supposed to be caretakers of Mother Earth, yet we're punching holes in it and sucking out her blood. But that's the only resource that was here. And other tribes, they have casinos and that sort of thing. With the Gaming Act, we'll never be able to get casinos here because if the state disallows it, you won't get it either. So our other two sister tribes in Colorado have that. And then my son, he works with the Pentagon, so he's into a whole another trip, and yeah, he supplies weapons for the military. You never know what your kids are gonna do. Like him, when he was little, he always played. He was in the Marines. He was in the intelligence, and he's a captain when he got out, and so he's our highest ranking officer for the tribe. And so the group that he's working with, they recruited him out to the Marines to do what he does, and he did that in country, sort of like the black, what color, so it's not blacklist, but yeah, they go in with the heavies when they go in country. But he's past that now, and so he's sending guys in. And so can't talk about what he does. It's pretty heavy stuff. So my kids are way up here past what I do. That's good. That's what we want for our kids. We're all here for a reason. The Creator gave us these gifts to do what we're meant to do here. And mine are these, and theirs are theirs. And, it just blows me away to see what they can accomplish. All right, well, if no questions,
I have one other
things,
question.
yeah.
Do you know if they're gonna have, is Fort Fishing gonna have their powwow this year?
Yeah, well, they're also going to have their bear dance, and it starts on Mother's Day. And as we get closer to spring, I'll do a whole session on bear dance, and we'll even do some bear dancing and shake the lake, and yeah, that's what I did last year, and we did the same thing. But I'm not so sure. I haven't seen a flyer yet when that powwow's going to start.
Tuesday, on the 4th of July, isn't it?
Well, you know, the way the powwow circuit is, every tribe has it for kind of set dates. And so it just depends if the 4th lies on our set dates. But the powwow circuit's pretty much laid out and has been since the 60s. And so, it's hard to say unless you look at the calendar, and because it's usually like the first week in July. And if that lies on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it'll be during the 4th. Otherwise, it'll be whatever that first weekend is.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, yeah, that's big, one of our biggest powwows, and Thanksgiving is our other.
I'm one of those people that goes on reservation, I actually slow down, and I'm hoping
for encounters, and I feel like I don't want to intrude, but I'm very curious and I really want to know. So how does that satisfy that curiosity?
Slow down and talk to someone.
I could go by the coffee pot shop all the time,
Yeah.
cafe, it's like, yeah.
You've got it.
Yeah,
Coffee is a coffee,
yeah.
government's house, so it's coffee house.
It looks like Turkish to me, because I was in the military in Turkey.
Okay.
Cafe Hane is in Turkey, and so I looked at that and went, that looks Turkish, yeah.
It's remarkable to me when you study other languages and see some similarities. It's like, whoa, that's so cool. But as you caught it when Aaron was talking, out of the 6 Utah tribes, we're all Uto-Aztecan. The only different one is the Navajo, and they came from Athabasca through that native narrow straight concept. But we came mostly from Mexico up this way. Being a filmmaker, I went down to Guatemala because our language has gone all the way down from there up into here. But they, outside of the professors, most people had no idea what Uto-Aztecan was. Okay? Uto-Aztecan. Okay? Yeah. All right. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.